The lists are just too long and the topics are just too short, so I think it's time to clear out the box of interesting history topics that don't fit into full episodes, but don't really connect to one another. So here is 3 interesting topics that have nothing to do with one another. Anyway, let's begin. In 1936, Max Hahn and his wife were hiking near London, Texas, where they came across a strange rock with a piece of wood protruding from it. They took it home, and some 10 years later, their son broke the stone open and found inside the head of a hammer embedded in the rock. The exact age and origin of the hammer are heavily debated frequently, as many theories exist trying to explain it, but it's an extremely interesting topic, so let's move on. March 13th, 2011 marks a day in infamy in wrestling history. Of course I'm going to talk about a wrestling topic on WrestleMania. The scheduled pay-per-view, known as Victory Road, was the 3rd event that the company Total Nonstop Wrestling had planned for the year. The show was going fine into the main event, where this guy, Sting, was set to fight this guy, Jeff Hardy. Needlessly to say, though, that's not what happened. Upon his entrance, it was clear that Jeff was not in his right self, and clearly under the influence of something. Jeff was going through a rough patch, and it was clear that that bled into his professional career, as that day he showed up in no condition to perform that night. So, the authoritative figure in play, Eric Bischoff, came to the ring and whispered the new plan to Sting, that it should be a quick pinfall, with Jeff not being allowed to compete, with Jeff not being able to compete in the match. This it became, taking what could have been a good match and forcing it into a pitiful, less than a minute and a half sight. Jeff has since gone on to rehab, but the awkward event remains in the history books forever. Let's move on to the last one. Alan Pace worked in the Dunbar armored facility, where he was able to examine the innermost workings of the armored car depot and plot an inside job to steal as much cash as possible. On September 12th in the year 1997, Alan and 5 others all snuck inside the facility and into the cafeteria, where they were able to ambush the guards on duty, one after another, knowing the inner workings of the building, timing of the cameras, and other specific details of the company. Alan was able to orchestrate a robbery of over $18 million. Being so clean-cut and streamlined, it was obvious that some inside intel was needed, and while Alan was closely examined, no proof could be found that he was the one. And he was only caught later when one of his partners were caught, and he named names, sending Alan to 24 years in prison for what to this day remains the largest cash robbery in US history. Thanks so much for watching this, frankly, a jumbled mess, and thanks for the undying support of the channel. Do you have a suggestion? Hit me up. I'm always open, and it helps a ton. Thanks again. Have a good night.